Dr. Noah Winters adjusted the visor on his environmental suit, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple. He frowned at the holographic map flickering in front of him, its image distorted by the magnetic interference saturating the atmosphere of Zinthris. The planet was breathtaking, otherworldly even by galactic standards. But it was also maddeningly unpredictable. Above him, a dense canopy of translucent, gem-like trees refracted the sunlight into dazzling, prismatic patterns that made his head ache if he stared too long. Beneath his boots, the soil seemed to hum faintly with a pulse of its own, as if the ground itself were alive. Noah muttered to himself, his voice muffled by the helmet. "It's just a sentient forest. No big deal. Definitely not planning to eat me." His mission on Zinthris was supposed to be straightforward: catalog the planet's flora and study its bizarre, planet-wide magnetic storms. A quiet, solitary assignment, perfect for someone like him, who preferred plants over people. But now, as the crystalline trees around him seemed to lean ever so slightly in his direction, Noah couldn't shake the sense that he was being observed. The soil beneath him shifted again, this time more deliberately. Noah froze and scanned the area with his spectrometer. "If this is a trap," he muttered, "I hope it's at least polite enough to announce itself first." The spectrometer beeped, signaling a faint energy signature nearby. Something, or someone was moving. He tightened his grip on his tranquilizer gun, though he doubted it would do much good against anything larger than a small, overly aggressive rodent. And then he saw her. At first, Noah thought she was just another part of the forest. A humanoid figure stood amidst the crystalline trees, her body shimmering with the same otherworldly translucence as her surroundings. But then she moved, stepping forward with a fluid grace that made his breath catch. Her skin glowed with an iridescent sheen, shifting colors as she moved. Her hair, or what he assumed was hair, was a cascade of fine, glowing tendrils that floated and swayed around her head, as if reacting to his presence. "Oh, great," Noah whispered. "My first alien encounter, and I look like a sweaty idiot in a glorified fishbowl." The alien woman tilted her head, her luminous, oversized eyes narrowing as though she'd heard him. She raised a hand, and Noah tensed, wondering if this was the part where he got vaporized. Instead, she pointed behind him and said something in a musical, lilting language he didn't understand. Noah turned, and his stomach dropped. A massive plant, vaguely resembling a pitcher plant but with razor-sharp petals, was creeping toward him, its jagged edges quivering in anticipation. "Okay. Nope," Noah mumbled, fumbling for his tranquilizer gun. Before he could aim, the alien woman raised her hand again. A pulse of energy rippled through the air, and the plant recoiled, wilting as if it had just been scolded. "Right? That's impressive," Noah said, lowering his weapon. Mental note: don't make her angry. The woman frowned, her tendrils twitching faintly, then gestured for him to follow. Noah hesitated, every horror story about botched first contact scenarios flashing through his mind. But she had just saved his life. With a deep breath, he nodded and followed her deeper into the forest. The village she led him to was unlike anything Noah had ever seen. The crystalline trees had been shaped, grown, it seemed, into elegant structures that shimmered with internal light. Bioluminescent vines coiled along the walls, bathing the settlement in a soft, ethereal glow. Noah was led to a central structure, where a group of the alien woman's kind awaited him. They were tall and striking, their forms as diverse as the flora of Zinthris, each adorned with intricate, glowing markings that resembled tattoos but seemed to shift and pulse with their emotions. Hi," Noah said, raising a hand in a nervous wave. "I come in peace and all that." The group murmured amongst themselves, their voices blending into a hauntingly beautiful harmony. Finally, one of them, a tall figure with an aura of authority, stepped forward. The alien woman who had saved him translated, her voice calm and musical. "You are welcome here, traveler. Your courage is noted." "Courage?" Noah blinked. "You got the wrong guy. I'm just a botanist with a bad sense of direction." The aliens laughed, a deep, resonant sound that made Noah's unease melt away, if only slightly. That evening, Noah sat at a long, crystalline table in what he guessed was the village's communal hall. The alien woman, who introduced herself as Amara, explained the intricacies of their culture, her dry humor catching him off guard more than once. When a gelatinous dish that jiggled ominously was placed in front of him, Amara smirked. "It's not poisonous," she said. "Probably." "Wow, you're really selling it," Noah replied, earning a chiming laugh from her. Despite his nerves, he found himself relaxing. Amara's wit and calm demeanor were strangely reassuring. The next morning, Noah awoke to the soft hum of the crystalline walls in his quarters. The sound was almost conversational, as if the walls were trying to chat with him. "Right? You're alive." "Noted," he muttered, groggily pulling on his boots. Amara appeared at the door, her tendrils catching the light like strands of living opal. "Good morning, Earthman. The council has summoned you." "Summoned me? For what? Did I insult the sacred soup last night?" Amara smirked, her expression unreadable. "You'll find out. Come on." The council chamber was the largest structure in the village, its domed ceiling glowing faintly. The air seemed to hum with an energy that made Noah's skin prickle. Seated in a semicircle were the council members, Amara's parents among them. Her father, tall and imposing, spoke first. "Noah Winters," he began, his voice resonant. "Your arrival here is no coincidence. It is a sign." "A sign? Of what?" Amara's mother, her gaze sharp and appraising, leaned forward. "Of a union between our worlds." Noah blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" The elder at the center of the council smiled serenely. "You will marry our daughter, Amara." Noah's jaw dropped. "I'm sorry, what?" Amara, standing beside him, crossed her arms and muttered under her breath. "Yeah, this wasn't exactly my idea either, Earthman." Chapter 2. I came here to study plants, not get hitched. Noah Winters stared at the council, his mind scrambling for words. Somewhere in the galaxy, there was probably a handbook for handling this sort of situation, but he was pretty sure it didn't include step 1 being, don't hyperventilate. "Excuse me," he said, raising a finger like he was back in university. "Just to clarify, are we talking about, like, an honorary title of marriage here? Something symbolic? Or are we diving straight into till death do us part? Because I feel like I missed several memos." Amara let out a sound that was suspiciously close to a groan. "Great. The Earthman's having a meltdown." Her father, who was apparently the head honcho of this crystal commune, leaned forward, his massive hands resting on the crystalline table. "This union is essential to the harmony between your people and ours. Your arrival was foretold. You and Amara will bond, and through this, our two worlds will forge a lasting connection." "That's wow, okay, very poetic," Noah said, his voice cracking slightly. "But counterpoint, I'm not exactly marriage material. I mean, I own 3 dying houseplants, and most of my meals involve freeze-dried noodles." Amara raised an eyebrow. Well, whatever the Xantherian equivalent of an eyebrow was. "You think I want this?" "I had plans. Important plans. And none of them involved babysitting a sweaty human who talks to himself." Noah whipped around to face her. "Hey, the suit gets hot, okay? And the talking helps me think." "Sure it does, Earthman." One of the council members coughed. A deep, resonant sound that somehow carried an air of disapproval. "This bickering is unbecoming. The ceremony must proceed. The prophecy is clear." "Oh, fantastic," Noah muttered, throwing his hands up. "Prophecies. Always love a good, vague, destiny-filled prophecy." Amara sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose, an oddly human gesture. "Can we just get this over with? The sooner we're bonded, the sooner I can go back to pretending he doesn't exist." "Bonded?" Noah's voice went up an octave. "Do you hear yourselves? I don't even know her. I don't know what her favorite food is, or if she snores, or whether she's secretly a morning person." Amara turned to him, deadpan. "It's glowfruit pudding, no, and absolutely not." "Oh." Noah blinked. "Okay, but that's beside the point." Amara's mother, who had been silent until now, finally spoke, her voice sharp enough to cut through their argument. "Enough. The ceremony is tomorrow. Amara, you will prepare him. Prepare me? Noah repeated, paling. Prepare me for what? Later that evening, Noah sat cross-legged in what he was pretty sure was some kind of alien spa, his environmental suit discarded in a corner. A viscous, glittering liquid oozed over his arms, giving him the distinct impression that he was being marinated. This is how I die, he muttered, covered in alien slime, on a planet that probably doesn't even get Netflix. Amara was sitting across from him, casually braiding her glowing tendrils. She didn't seem nearly as concerned. Relax, Earthman. It's just a purification ritual. They're not going to eat you. You keep saying that, Noah said, eyeing the alien attendants pouring more slime into a bowl. But I feel like you're trying to convince yourself more than me. One of the attendants, a towering alien with glittering green markings, handed Noah a drink that looked like liquid starlight. He stared at it suspiciously. What's this? Just drink it, Amara said, rolling her eyes. Define, just, Noah countered, sniffing the liquid. It smelled like a mix of citrus and freshly cut grass. Against his better judgment, he took a cautious sip. It was delicious. Okay, that's actually not bad, he admitted, taking another sip. Kind of tastes like mango. If mango got into a fight with a lemon and the lemon cheated by bringing sugar. Amara gave him a rare smirk. Careful, Earthman. You might actually start enjoying yourself. Oh, don't worry, he shot back. This is still easily in my top 3 weirdest days of all time. The night before the ceremony. Noah paced the small crystalline room that had been assigned to him, muttering under his breath. Okay, Noah, think there's got to be a way out of this. Maybe I can fake an intergalactic emergency, or claim I'm allergic to alien marriages. Is that a thing? The walls, as usual, hummed faintly in response. Amara appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Are you seriously talking to the walls again? They started it, Noah said defensively. She sighed, stepping into the room. Look, I don't like this any more than you do. But my parents are persuasive. Trust me, arguing won't get you anywhere. Great, Noah muttered. So my options are marry an alien stranger or become a prophecy-defying pariah. Amara tilted her head, studying him. You're taking this surprisingly well for someone who had a meltdown over glowfruit pudding. Hey, that pudding jiggled. You'd freak out too if your dinner looked like it could sprout legs and walk away. She snorted, a sound Noah hadn't heard from her before. It was oddly endearing. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Finally, Amara sighed. Look, Earthman, tomorrow's going to be weird. But if you don't make it even weirder, I promise I'll try not to make your life miserable after this. Gee, thanks, Noah said dryly. Don't mention it, Amara replied, smirking as she turned to leave. As the door shimmered shut behind her, Noah flopped onto the strange jelly-like bed, staring up at the glowing ceiling. Yep, he muttered. Totally normal day. Little did he know, tomorrow was about to redefine his understanding of weird. Chapter 3. To have and to ha? The day of the ceremony dawned with a lot more fanfare than Noah would have preferred. He woke to the sound of melodic chimes and the walls of his room vibrating like an overly enthusiastic alarm clock. I'm awake, he groaned, swatting at the air as if that would help. Do you guys have a snooze button, or? The door melted open, and Amara stood there, already dressed in what Noah could only describe as a gown made of glowing crystal shards. It shimmered as she moved, catching the light like a living disco ball. Get up, Earthman, she said, crossing her arms. You're about to make history, or at least a lot of questionable life choices. Noah sat up, squinting at her. Do I have to wear one of those? He gestured to her gown. Amara smirked. Don't worry, you got something even better. 30 minutes later. Define better, Noah said, staring at himself in the reflective surface of his environmental helmet, which had been hastily repurposed as a mirror. The villagers had dressed him in what looked like a toga made of bioluminescent moss, complete with a crown of glowing vines that hummed softly. Is this alive? He asked, poking at the moss. Yes, Amara said, adjusting her own crown of shimmering crystal tendrils. Try not to think about it. That's exactly the kind of thing that makes me think about it, Noah muttered, but Amara was already dragging him out of the room and toward the central plaza. The ceremony, The village had transformed overnight. The crystalline structures glowed brighter than usual, casting rainbows across the gathered crowd. Alien children darted between the adults, their laughter chiming like tiny bells. Noah felt like every single one of the villagers was staring at him, which, to be fair, they were. "I feel like a bug under a magnifying glass," he whispered to Amara as they approached the massive archway in the center of the plaza. It was made of intertwined crystal and bioluminescent vines, and it pulsed with a rhythm that felt uncomfortably like a heartbeat. "Relax," Amara said, though she didn't sound particularly relaxed herself. "They're just curious. It's not every day an Earthman becomes part of a prophecy." "Write the prophecy," Noah said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Still waiting for someone to explain that in detail. Like, is there a how-to guide? A checklist?" Before Amara could respond, her father stepped forward, his imposing presence immediately silencing the crowd. "Today," he boomed, his voice resonating across the plaza, "we witness the union that will bind two worlds together. A union foretold by our ancestors. A union of harmony, trust, and mutual confusion," Noah whispered under his breath. Amara elbowed him. The ceremony began in earnest, with a series of rituals that Noah didn't entirely understand, but tried his best to follow. There was a lot of chanting, some awkward hand gestures, and at one point he had to sprinkle glowing sand into a bowl of what looked like alien pudding. "I swear, if that pudding moves, I'm out," he muttered, earning a stifled laugh from Amara. Finally, the elder holding the bowl gestured for Noah and Amara to step forward. "Place your hands together," she instructed, her voice calm but firm. Noah hesitated but complied, his palms brushing against Amara's. Her skin was cool and smooth, like polished glass, and he couldn't help but notice the faint shimmer that ran through her tendrils as their hands touched. A faint hum filled the air, growing louder as the elder poured a sparkling liquid over their joined hands. The liquid absorbed into their skin, leaving behind faint, glowing patterns that pulsed in time with the rhythm of the archway. Is it supposed to do that?" Noah asked nervously, watching the glowing marks dance across his skin. "It means the bond has been accepted," the elder said, smiling serenely. "By who?" Noah demanded. The crowd erupted into cheers, cutting off his protest. Amara leaned closer, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "Congratulations, Earthman. You're officially married." Noah blinked at her, then at the cheering crowd, then back at her. "Wait, that's it? That's the whole ceremony? No vows? No cake?" Amara raised an eyebrow. "Do you want cake?" "I mean, it wouldn't hurt," Noah said, still processing what had just happened. The aftermath. The rest of the day passed in a blur of celebration. The villagers danced, their crystalline bodies casting dazzling reflections across the plaza. Someone handed Noah a drink that glowed faintly in the dark, and he decided not to ask what was in it. "So," he said to Amara as they sat at the edge of the festivities, watching the children play with glowing orbs that floated like soap bubbles. "What happens now?" "Now," she said, leaning back against a crystalline bench, "we figure out how to tolerate each other long enough to fulfill this prophecy. Whatever that means." "Great," Noah said, raising his glowing drink in a mock toast. "Here's to the galaxy's weirdest honeymoon." Amara snorted, shaking her head. "You're impossible." "Thanks," Noah said, grinning despite himself. As the festivities continued, Noah couldn't help but feel a strange mix of dread and excitement. Sure, he was now accidentally married to an alien in a village that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi fever dream. But, he had to admit, life had never been more interesting. The morning after the wedding, Noah woke up to the hum of the walls again, though this time it felt less intrusive and more like a reminder that he wasn't on Earth anymore. He groaned, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and rolled off the jelly-like, sleeping platform with a thud. It wasn't the weird bed or the alien architecture that jarred him. It was the fact that he wasn't alone. Amara was sitting cross-legged on what looked like a grown-in chair made of vines, watching him with an expression that fell somewhere between amusement and exasperation. "Good morning, husband," she said, her tone light but teasing. Noah sat up, groaning. "Can we not call it that? It's still weird." Well, it's not exactly optional, she replied, gesturing to the glowing markings on their hands, which were faint now but still visible. We're bonded, remember? Forever and ever. Yeah, I'm trying not to remember. Amara smirked. Well, try harder. My parents have called for us. Oh, great. More awkward family time, Noah muttered, hauling himself to his feet. Do they have another prophecy to drop on us? Or is this one of those meet the in-laws situations where they quiz me on my life goals and ask if I can support you? Something like that, Amara said, standing gracefully. Though I think they're more worried about whether you'll embarrass me in front of the council again. Again? That pudding thing wasn't my fault. It looked alive. Amara ignored him, motioning for him to follow her out into the village. The morning light made everything shimmer even more than usual, and Noah squinted, shielding his eyes. As they walked, he noticed how much the villagers stared at him. Some smiled, others nodded respectfully, but most just looked curious. He wasn't sure if it was because of his glowing hand tattoos, his moss toga, or the fact that he was, a human. When they reached the council chamber, Amara's parents were already waiting, along with several other council members. Her father stood tall and imposing, his crystalline skin reflecting the light in sharp patterns. Her mother, on the other hand, looked like she was 2 seconds away from rolling her eyes at Noah's very existence. Dr. Carter, her father began, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. We hope you have had time to reflect on the significance of the bond you now share with our daughter. Oh, I've reflected, Noah said, trying to sound diplomatic. A lot of reflecting. Tons, really. Like hours of it. Amara elbowed him. Her mother sighed. Do you take anything seriously? Not really, Noah admitted, then quickly added. But I'm trying. Honestly, I am. This whole situation is just a lot to process. Then allow us to simplify it, Amara's father said, his gaze piercing. Your union is more than just symbolic. It represents the merging of 2 worlds, 2 species. The prophecy states that this bond will bring balance to both our peoples. Noah blinked. Okay, but how? Are we supposed to do something? Like start a charity? Write a book? Host an intergalactic TED Talk? The council members exchanged glances, and Amara's mother looked like she was regretting every decision that had led to this moment. The details are unclear, her father admitted. But we believe your presence here is the first step. It is said that through this bond, a great change will come, something that will benefit not only our people but yours as well. Noah stared at him. That's it? That's the plan? Just wait for something to happen. Amara looked at him, her tendrils twitching slightly. Welcome to my world, Earthman. Prophecies are vague by design. Yeah, but this is next-level vague. Like fortune cookie written by a drunk poet vague. Her mother's gaze hardened. Perhaps you should spend less time making jokes and more time considering the weight of your responsibility. Noah held up his hands defensively. Hey, I get it. Big responsibility. 2 worlds, peace, harmony, blah, blah, blah. I'm on board. I just wish someone would give me a manual or something. Amara's father stepped forward, his expression softening slightly. We do not expect you to understand everything immediately. But we do expect you to respect our ways and honor the bond you now share with Amara. Noah glanced at Amara, who was watching him intently. Despite her usual sarcasm, there was something serious in her gaze now, something that made him realize this was as much her burden as it was his. I'll try, he said finally, his tone more earnest than before. I can't promise I won't mess up, but I'll try. The council seemed satisfied with that, and after a few more formalities, they were dismissed. As they left the chamber, Noah let out a long breath. Well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be. No one threatened to vaporize me, so I'll call it a win. Amara gave him a sidelong glance. Don't get too comfortable. My parents have very high expectations. Yeah, I noticed. They walked in silence for a moment before Noah spoke again. So what's next? Do we just hang out until the universe decides to throw us a bone? Something like that, Amara said, though there was a flicker of uncertainty in her voice. Great, Noah said, grinning despite himself. You, me, and an ancient prophecy that may or may not actually mean anything. This is going to be fun. Amara shook her head, but but there was the faintest hint of a smile on her lips. Let's hope you're right, Earthman. The next few weeks passed in a strange blur. Noah and Amara settled into a tentative rhythm of cohabitation, which mostly consisted of her rolling her eyes at his jokes and him marveling at how she managed to look effortlessly dignified even when annoyed. The village, for its part, grew accustomed to the human wandering around with an awkward smile and an endless stream of questions. Noah had taken to helping wherever he could, carrying supplies, organizing tools, even attempting to learn some of the villagers' language. He wasn't great at it, and his mispronunciations often led to fits of laughter from the children, but at least he was trying. Amara, to Noah's surprise, began opening up to him. She started sharing stories of her people, their customs, and their connection to the living planet around them. He learned that the glowing trees weren't just beautiful. They were a part of a vast, planet-wide neural network that connected everything and everyone on Artraxia. The trees are the heart of our world, she explained one evening as they sat by a small, glowing stream. They carry memories, emotions, even knowledge. They are why we live in harmony here. Noah had listened, genuinely fascinated. So, they're like giant memory sticks. That's actually really cool. Do they ever, lose data? Amara had chuckled, a sound that Noah had come to appreciate more than he cared to admit. Not exactly, but they can be temperamental, which is why balance is so important. It was during one of these quiet moments that things finally came to a head. The village had gathered for a celebration, a festival honoring the planetary cycles. Bioluminescent lights twinkled like stars above them, and the air buzzed with music and laughter. Noah, still feeling out of place but determined to fit in, had joined the festivities. He was in the middle of a rather clumsy attempt at one of the village dances when a deep rumble shook the ground. The music stopped. The laughter died. Amara appeared at his side in an instant, her expression serious. That's not normal. Noah glanced around, noticing the villagers murmuring nervously. Should I be worried? Before Amara could answer, the rumble grew louder. The ground beneath their feet began to glow faintly, the same eerie light he'd seen in the forest when he first arrived. Definitely worried, Amara said, grabbing his arm. Come on. She pulled him toward the edge of the village, where a group of elders had gathered. The air felt heavy, charged with energy, and Noah could see the crystalline trees swaying unnaturally, their branches crackling with light. What's going on? He asked, trying to keep up with Amara's pace. The balance is shifting, she said, her voice tight. Something's wrong. As they reached the elders, Amara's father turned to them, his expression grave. The forest is agitated. Something has disturbed its harmony. Okay, but what does that mean? Noah asked, trying to keep the panic out of his voice. It means the planet is angry, Amara said, her tendrils twitching with unease. Angry? How does a planet even? A deafening crack cut him off. One of the massive trees at the edge of the village split apart, its shimmering trunk fracturing like glass. From within, a dark, writhing mass began to emerge, something that looked like a twisted version of the crystalline creatures Noah had grown accustomed to, but corrupted, malevolent. The villagers screamed and scattered as the creature surged forward. Amara's father stepped in front of it, his arms outstretched, trying to communicate with it in their melodic language. But the creature didn't listen. It struck out, sending him flying backward. No! Amara shouted, running to her father's side. Noah stood frozen for a moment, his heart pounding. This wasn't what he'd signed up for. He was just a researcher, a nerd with a knack for getting lost, not a hero. But as he watched the creature advance on the village, something inside him snapped. Amara, he shouted, running toward her. What do we do? She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. The trees! They're the key. We have to restore the balance. Right, the trees, Noah said, glancing at the swaying canopy. Any idea how to do that? Amara hesitated, then grabbed his hand, her glowing markings flaring brightly. We'll have to do it together. The bond might be enough to stabilize the energy. Wait, what bond? You mean the marriage thing? That actually does stuff? Just trust me, she snapped, pulling him toward the creature. As they approached, The creature turned its glowing, fractured eyes on them, its movements jerky and chaotic. Amara began to chant in her language, her voice rising and falling like a song. The markings on their hands pulsed in time with her words, and Noah felt a strange warmth spreading through him. What do I do?" he asked, his voice shaky. "Focus." Amara said, "Think of balance, harmony, anything but fear." "Great advice," Noah muttered, squeezing his eyes shut. Together, their combined energy began to radiate outward, connecting with the trees. The creature recoiled, its form flickering as the light around them grew brighter. The trees swayed in unison, their branches humming with a deep, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through Noah's very bones. With a final, piercing shriek, the creature dissolved into a burst of light, its energy dispersing into the air. Noah opened his eyes, blinking in the sudden silence. The forest was still again, the trees glowing faintly as if nothing had happened. Amara let go of his hand, her breathing heavy. "You did it?" "Me? I'm pretty sure that was all you," Noah said, still trying to process what had just happened. She shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "No, it was us. The bond, it worked." Noah looked at her, then at the glowing trees around them. For the first time, he felt like he might actually belong here, not because of some prophecy, but because of her. "Well," he said, trying to lighten the mood, "if that's what married life is like, I think I need a raise." Amara laughed, the sound clear and musical. "You'll survive, Earthman." As they walked back to the village together, the weight of the prophecy no longer felt so heavy. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work after all.